The early morning hours in Los Angeles held that heavy silence only 3 a.m. can bring. In the exclusive Bel-Air neighborhood, an imposing mansion stood tall behind high walls and perfectly manicured gardens. Inside, Robert Miller walked through the dark hallways, his footsteps echoing on the cold marble floor. Another sleepless night. Another night where his brilliant mind, the one that had built a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, refused to rest. He descended the stairs toward the kitchen, looking for a glass of water. Maybe routine would help. Maybe the silence would calm him. But as he approached the industrial-sized kitchen, a metallic sound broke the house's stillness. The clatter of dishes, running water, hurried movements. Robert frowned. Who would be awake at this hour? Stepping into the kitchen, the scene he found froze him for an instant. Under the yellowish glow of the overhead lights, a teenage girl was hunched over the gigantic sink, washing an endless mountain of plates, glasses, and silver cutlery. They were the remnants of the corporate dinner he had hosted the night before for international investors. The girl had her brown hair pulled back in a messy bun, and her hands moved in, slow motion, as if every gesture cost immense effort. Clara, the daughter of Mrs. Lucia, his trusted housekeeper for over 10 years. Robert watched her for a few seconds before speaking. The girl's hands were red, swollen, with visible marks of recent burns caused by the hot water. She wore an apron far too large for her slender frame and had deep, dark circles marking her young face. Clara? Robert's voice cut through the silence, making the teenager spin around abruptly, nearly dropping a porcelain platter. "Mr. Miller!" She widened her eyes, clearly startled. I didn't know you were awake." Robert approached slowly, assessing the situation. Clara should have been asleep. She had school the next morning. He knew this because Mrs. Lucia always spoke proudly about her daughter's dedication to her studies. "What are you doing here at this hour? Where is your mother?" The question made Clara swallow hard. She looked away, focusing again on the sink full of dishes. "My mom she has a bad flu, sir. Really bad. She needs to rest so she doesn't lose her job. I'm just helping out a little. It's no big deal." But it was a big deal. Robert hadn't reached the top of the tech market by being naive. He knew how to read people better than he read financial statements. And what he saw on Clara's face wasn't the natural concern of a daughter caring for her sick mother. It was fear. A deep, desperate fear. The kind that freezes the blood in your veins. "Clara, look at me." He used the firm yet gentle tone he reserved for delicate moments. "Is your mother okay?" "Yes, sir, she is. It's just the flu. She'll be back at work tomorrow, I promise." The lie was stamped on, every nervous word, but Robert decided not to press. At least not yet. He looked around the kitchen. In the corner, leaning against the wall, was Clara's old faded school backpack, slightly ajar. From inside it, something golden reflected the light. Robert approached discreetly, while the girl returned to washing the dishes with renewed vigor, as if she wanted to finish quickly and escape the awkward situation. It was an academic honor cord. Gold, gleaming, new. The kind of recognition only the best students received. Next to it, partially visible, was an old black and white photograph. Robert gently pulled the photo out for a better look. A uniformed military man, a subtle smile, an upright posture. The emblem on the uniform made his heart race for a second, but he kept his reaction to himself. "Clara?" He turned his attention back to the girl. "It's past 3 in the morning. Go to sleep. I'll take care of this." "But sir, I need to finish." "That's an order." Robert used the tone that brooked no argument. "Go home, get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." Clara hesitated, clearly torn between obedience and the desperation to complete the task. Finally, she nodded, wiped her hands on the apron, and picked up her backpack. As she passed Robert, she kept her eyes downcast. "Thank you, sir. Sorry for the trouble." Robert watched her leave through the back door that led to the service area, and beyond that, to the small annex apartment where Mrs. Lucia and Clara lived. When the door closed, he remained standing there, looking at the sink full of dishes gleaming under the artificial light. Something was very wrong. He returned to his bedroom, but sleep remained elusive. Lying in his king-size bed, staring at the high ceiling, Robert couldn't shake the image of those red, swollen hands, the fear etched on Clara's face, the photo of the military man in the backpack. That emblem. He knew that emblem. At 6 a.m, when the first rays of sun began to invade the room through the heavy curtains, Robert picked up the phone and called his personal assistant, Andrew, a discreet and efficient man who had worked with him for 15 years. "Andrew, I need you to run a full background check for me. Discreet, but thorough." "Of course, Mr. Miller." "On whom?" "Mrs. Lucia, my housekeeper, and her daughter, Clara. I want to know everything. Financial situation, health, the girls' school history, where they work, what they do, everything." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Andrew knew Robert well enough not to question, but the surprise was evident in the silence. "Understood. How much time do I have?" "As fast as possible. Today, if you can manage it." "I'll start right away." Robert hung up and finally got out of bed. He took a long, hot shower, put on one of his custom-tailored suits, and went down for breakfast. The table was set, impeccably, as always. Fresh orange juice, artfully cut fruit, warm bread, homemade jam. But Mrs. Lucia was nowhere in sight. In her place, one of the other staff members, Joanna, was serving coffee. "Good morning, Joanna. Where is Mrs. Lucia?" "Good morning, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Lucia called early saying she's sick. She asked me to let you know she'll be back tomorrow." Sick, of course. Robert nodded and began to eat mechanically, his mind already elsewhere. At 2 p.m, his cell phone rang. It was Andrew. "Mr. Miller, I finished the check. Are you at the office?" "I am. Come straight up to my office." 20 minutes later, Andrew entered the glass-walled office on the top floor of the skyscraper that housed the headquarters of Robert's company. He carried a black folder under his arm and wore a serious expression. Robert dismissed his secretary and closed the door. "Tell me." Andrew opened the folder and placed the documents on the glass table. "Mrs. Lucia doesn't have the flu, sir. She has a complex autoimmune disease, systemic lupus to be specific. It's serious and in an advanced stage." Robert felt his stomach clench. "The medications she needs are not covered by the basic health plan we offer employees. The full treatment costs almost $4,000 a month. Practically her entire salary. $4,000. An amount that, for Robert, was less than he spent on an executive dinner. For Mrs. Lucia, it was the choice between living or eating." "And Clara?" Andrew turned the page, revealing school documents. "This is where the story gets more impressive. Clara isn't just a good student, Mr. Miller. She is the top student in the entire state school system of California. Exceptional performance in all subjects. She won a full scholarship and was accepted into the Young Leadership program at UCLA." Robert felt a mixture of relief and pride. At least the girl had a bright future. "Had," Andrew corrected, and the tone of his voice made Robert look up from the documents. "Clara dropped out of classes 3 weeks ago. She missed the final university application deadline. According to school records, she simply stopped showing up without explanation." Robert felt as if a bucket of ice water had been thrown over him. "What do you mean she dropped out? Why?" "I investigated further, sir. Clara is working 2 jobs in addition to covering her mother's duties here at the mansion. During the early morning, she does the heavy work that Mrs. Lucia can no longer manage. At night, from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., she works at a 24-hour diner downtown, near Pershing Square." Robert closed his eyes. Those red, swollen hands, the exhaustion on her face, the fear in her eyes. It all made sense now. She is using the money from both jobs to buy her mother's medicine and pay the bills. They are 3 months behind on the rent for the annex apartment. The landlord has already threatened eviction. "Wait!" Robert opened his eyes. "What rent? The annex apartment is part of the property. Mrs. Lucia lives there as part of her work agreement." Andrew adjusted his glasses, uncomfortable. Actually, sir, technically that space is not listed as employee housing in the official documents. The previous owner charged a symbolic rent. When you bought the mansion 5 years ago, you maintained the same informal agreement, but never formalized it. Robert cursed under his breath. Another administrative failure, another loophole that allowed people to take advantage of the situation. And Mrs. Lucia, proud and discreet as she always was, never mentioned difficulties. "There's one more thing, Mr. Miller." Andrew hesitated before pulling the last photo from the folder. It was an enlarged copy of the photograph Robert had seen in Clara's backpack. The uniformed military man, smiling subtly. "I identified the man in the photo. He is Sergeant Anthony Tony Silva, Clara's grandfather. He served on a UN peacekeeping mission in Haiti in the 70s. Robert took the photo with hands that trembled slightly. The battalion emblem was clear now, enlarged. His heart raced. "The same battalion where your brother served, sir." Andrew's words echoed in the silent room. Robert stared at the photo for long minutes. His older brother, Edward, was only 23 when he left for that mission. It was 1976. Edward was full of dreams, idealistic, believing he could make a difference in the world. Robert was only 15 at the time and idolized his brother. He wanted to be like him, brave and determined. Edward never returned, an accident during a rescue operation. Quick, they said, without suffering, they assured. But for the family, especially for Robert's mother, Mrs. Helen, it was the end of the world. She fell into a deep, almost catatonic depression. She stopped eating, talking, living. Doctors didn't know what to do. Medicines didn't help. Therapy didn't work. Until the letters started arriving. Handwritten letters on simple paper with firm, careful handwriting. Letters from Sergeant Anthony Silva, who served alongside Edward. He wrote to Mrs. Helen for months, maybe a whole year. He told stories about Edward, about his courage, about how he helped the other soldiers, about how he made everyone laugh, even in the most difficult situations. He described the last day in respectful detail, ensuring that Edward did not suffer, that it was quick, that he was a hero until the end. And most importantly, the sergeant wrote something that saved Mrs. Helen, that Edward did not pass alone, that he was there, holding the young man's hand, saying words of comfort, ensuring that his family would be informed with care and respect. The sergeant treated Edward not as just another fallen soldier, but as a brother. Those letters brought Mrs. Helen back to life. She started eating again, getting out of bed, finding a purpose in honoring her son's memory. Robert's family never personally met Sergeant Anthony, but his mother kept every letter like a treasure. She passed away a few years ago, peacefully, holding the bundle of yellowed letters. And now, decades later, Robert discovered that the daughter and granddaughter of that extraordinary man were working for him. And they were destroying themselves in silence while he slept on Italian silk sheets, unaware of anything. "Andrew, I need the exact address where they live. Now." "It's right here, sir." Andrew pointed to the paper. "Acacia Street, number 127, apartment 3, Silver Lake." Robert grabbed his car keys. "Cancel my schedule for the rest of the day, and tomorrow too." "Sir, you have a meeting with the Japanese investors tomorrow at 9. "Cancel it." Robert was already at the door. "Say I had a family emergency. I'm not lying." 20 minutes later, Robert parked his silver Mercedes in front of a modest 3-story building in Silver Lake. The paint was peeling, some windows had broken panes patched with duct tape, an entrance without a doorman. He climbed the narrow stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door of apartment 3. It took a few minutes for the door to open slowly. Mrs. Lucia appeared in the crack, and Robert had to control his expression of shock. The woman he saw every day, impeccably dressed, energetic and efficient, was almost unrecognizable. Too thin, pale skin, sunken eyes. She wore an old bathrobe and leaned on the doorframe as if she could barely stand. "Mr. Miller?" Her voice was hoarse, surprised. What are you doing here?" "May I come in, Mrs. Lucia?" She hesitated, clearly embarrassed, but finally opened the door. The apartment was tiny, a living room that also served as a kitchen, with an old sofa and a small TV. 2 doors, probably for a bedroom and a bathroom. Everything was clean, organized, but visibly poor. Robert saw bottles of medicine on the coffee table. Many bottles. "Please sit down." Mrs. Lucia pointed to the sofa, but she herself remained standing, tense. "Mrs. Lucia, I came here because I found out some things, and I need you to be honest with me." Her face immediately closed up, defensive. "I know you don't have the flu. I know about your health condition. I know about the medicines, the overdue bills, and I know Clara dropped out of school to work." Mrs. Lucia closed her eyes, and tears began to roll silently down her face. She sat down heavily on the sofa, as if her legs could no longer support her. "I wanted to tell you, Mr. Miller, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing my job, of being seen as incapable, of not being able to support my daughter. I've always been strong, always managed everything. I didn't want to seem weak." "You are not weak, Mrs. Lucia. You are human. And you are sick. Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Pride," she answered simply, wiping her face with trembling hands. "Idiotic pride and shame. You already do. So much for us. You gave us a job, a place to live. I didn't want to be another burden." Robert leaned forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Where is Clara now?" Mrs. Lucia looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost 5 in the afternoon. "She's at work, at the diner. She'll be there until 2 in the morning, as usual." "Which diner?" "The Spot, sir. It's on Main Street, near Pershing Square. Please don't go there. She'll be embarrassed. I've already talked to her. I told her she needs to go back to school, that I'll figure something out, but she won't listen to me. She's stubborn, sir. Just like her grandfather." Hearing the mention of the grandfather, Robert felt it was time. "Mrs. Lucia, I need to tell you something. Something you might not know. About your father and my family." She looked at him, confused. Robert took an old photograph, carefully protected by plastic, from the inside pocket of his jacket. It was almost identical to the one Clara carried, but from a different angle. 2 uniformed men, smiling at the camera. One of them was Sergeant Anthony Silva. The other was Edward Miller, Robert's brother. "Your father saved my mother, Mrs. Lucia. After my brother left on that mission, my mother fell into a deep depression. Doctors thought she wouldn't survive. Then your father started writing letters. For over a year. Letters about Edward, about who he was, about his last moments. Those letters brought my mother back to life." Mrs. Lucia held the photo with both hands, her eyes wide. Tears fell onto the protective plastic as she traced with her finger the face of the father who had passed away so long ago. "I didn't know." Her voice came out in a choked whisper. "Daddy never told me. He just said he had helped some families during his service, but he never went into detail. He was discreet like that. Always was. Your father was a hero, Mrs. Lucia. Not just in the war, but afterward, too. And I never got to thank him personally. When I finally had the means to look for him, I found out he had already passed away. That was over 15 years ago. He passed when Clara was only 2. Mrs. Lucia confirmed, still looking at the photo. "Heart trouble. It was quick." Robert nodded, respecting the moment of silence that followed. "That's why I'm here, Mrs. Lucia. It's not charity. It's a debt that has been pending for 50 years. Your father helped my family when we needed it most. Now it's my turn." "But Mr. Miller, I can't—" "I'm not asking for permission," Robert interrupted, gentle but firm. "Tomorrow morning, you will be admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. I already have a contact there, one of the best specialists in autoimmune diseases in the country. He will take care of you personally, all costs on me." "Sir, that's too much. And Clara," Robert continued, ignoring the protest. "Clara will go back to school. My assistant will accompany her to regularize the situation, take the exams she missed, and recover the scholarship. I will use my contacts at the university to reverse the bureaucratic deadlines." Mrs. Lucia began to cry harder, covering her face with her hands. It was a cry of relief, of exhaustion, of accumulated gratitude. "But now, I need to go get your daughter." Robert stood up. Because if she's been working at that diner from 8 at night until 2 in the morning, she probably doesn't even know I'm here. She will resist, sir. Clara inherited her grandfather's stubbornness. Then she inherited the right person's stubbornness. Robert smiled for the first time since arriving there. Because I'm stubborn too. Stay here, rest, lock the door. I'm going to bring your daughter home. The Spot Diner was exactly the kind of establishment Robert had never entered in his life. Flickering neon lights, the smell of grease in the air, worn Formica tables, a dirty counter where a few people were drinking reheated coffee. It was almost 8 in the evening and business was moderate. Robert walked in and stood in a corner, observing. Clara was there, wearing a yellow and brown uniform that was too big for her. She carried a heavy tray with plates of food, serving a table of 4 men who were talking loudly and laughing at jokes she clearly didn't find funny. One of them made a comment Robert couldn't hear, but he saw Clara blush and quickly move away. For the next hour, Robert simply watched. He saw Clara being rudely called out by the manager, a chubby man with a mustache, every time she took a few extra seconds to attend to a table. He saw her stumble over her own feet from exhaustion. He saw the deep dark circles, the way she squinted her eyes as if she had a headache. It was clear the girl was at the absolute limit of her strength. Then it happened. Clara was carrying a particularly heavy tray, full of plates with generous portions of food. She was coming from a table in the back and needed to cross the dining room to the kitchen. But halfway there, her legs gave out. She tried to balance herself, but the weight of the tray pulled her sideways. Everything happened in slow motion. The tray slipped from her hands, falling to the floor with a monumental crash. Plates shattered, food scattered across the floor. Cutlery flew in all directions. The noise was so loud that the entire diner stopped. Everyone looked. Clara stood there paralyzed, looking at the disaster at her feet. Her hands were shaking. Her face was white. The manager appeared immediately, red with rage. "Clara, what the hell did you do, girl?" I'm so sorry, Mr. Walter. I slipped." Slipped? The man was practically screaming now. "That's $200 worth of food on the floor, plus the dishes. It's all coming out of your paycheck, do you hear me? All of it." "But, Mr. Walter, my salary isn't even enough. Then it'll take 2 months to pay. 3, 4. I don't care. You pay every last cent." Clara was starting to cry, and some customers looked away, embarrassed. The manager continued yelling, pointing his finger in the girl's face. That's when Robert moved. He crossed the diner with long, firm strides, his imposing presence making people automatically clear a path. He stopped between Clara and the manager, pulling his wallet from his pocket. How much was the damage? His voice was calm, but carried an authority that immediately silenced the manager. "Who are you?" "Someone who will pay for what she broke." "How much was it?" The manager looked from Robert to Clara, confused. It was $200 in food, plus about 80 in dishes." "300 then." Robert took out 6 $100 bills and placed them in the manager's hand. "It's paid, with a bonus for the inconvenience." "Mr. Miller?" Clara finally recognized him, her eyes wide with surprise and shame. "What are you doing here?" "I came to get you." He turned to her, his expression softening. "Gather your things. You don't work here anymore." "But I need to—" "No, you don't," Robert interrupted. "Mr. Walter, this is Clara's resignation. She won't be back tomorrow or ever again." The manager was still holding the bills, stunned. "But she has to give notice." "Consider the notice served and pay her what she's owed." "She's not owed anything. She owes me money." "She doesn't anymore. I paid. Now give me what she earned this week." The manager, intimidated by Robert's presence and the money he still held, grumbled but went to the register. He returned with some crumpled bills and handed them to Robert, who passed them to Clara. "Let's go." He placed a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "Get your things and let's leave." Clara was still in shock. but she obeyed. She went to the back, returned with a small backpack, and followed Robert to the door. When they left, the awkward silence of the diner finally broke into speculative murmurs. Outside, in the cool night air, Clara stopped and looked at Robert. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Get in the car." The Mercedes was parked on the corner. Clara looked at the luxury vehicle, then at her own grease-stained clothes and hesitated. "I'll get it dirty." "I don't care. Get in." For the first few minutes of the drive, neither of them spoke. Robert drove carefully through the Los Angeles traffic while Clara looked out the window, hugging her backpack to her chest. Then he noticed. Her right hand was bleeding. A thin but deep cut, probably caused by a shard of dishware when the tray fell. "You're hurt." Clara looked at her own hand as if seeing it for the first time. "It's just a scratch." "No, it's not." Robert pulled the car over, turned on the interior light, and opened the glove compartment, from which he took a complete first aid kit. "Give me your hand." Clara extended her hand, and Robert carefully cleaned the cut, using gauze and antiseptic. She winced in pain, but didn't complain. He applied a proper bandage, securing it with tape. "There, change that tomorrow." The simple paternal gesture was too much for Clara. The barrier she had built around herself for weeks finally broke. She started to cry. Not a silent cry, but deep, desperate sobs that shook her entire small body. "I couldn't take it anymore." The words came out between sobs. "I wasn't coping anymore, Mr. Miller. I tried. I swear I tried. But it's too much. It's too heavy." Robert said nothing, just waited for her to vent. "My mom is dying," Clara continued, her voice breaking. "She says she's fine, but I see it. She's getting weaker every day, and the medicines cost so much, so much. I thought if I worked more, if I slept less, I could do it. But I can't. I can't save my mom and I have a future at the same time. So I chose." "Chose what?" "I chose my mom." Clara wiped her face with the back of her good hand. "I threw away the university acceptance letter. I dropped out of classes. Because how could I go to UCLA, study political science, have a career, while my mom wastes away without medicine at home? How? What kind of daughter would I be?" Robert felt a tightness in his chest. This 17-year-old girl was carrying a burden that many adults couldn't bear, and she carried it in silence, without asking for help, sacrificing her brilliant future for the person she loved. "Clara, you didn't have to choose. No one should have to make that choice. But I did, and I don't regret it. I'd rather be uneducated and have my mom alive than be a graduate and have lost her." "And what would your mother say if she knew you threw away your future for her?" Clara was silent, staring at her own hands. "She would be devastated." She finally admitted. "She always said I would be the first in the family to get a college degree. That I would make a difference in the world. That Grandpa would be proud." "Then why do you think you have the right to take that away from her? The joy of seeing her daughter grow up, graduate, succeed." Clara looked at Robert with tear-filled eyes. "Because joy doesn't buy medicine, Mr. Miller. Reality is that cruel. But what if there was another way? What if you didn't have to choose?" "There isn't another way. I've looked. I've tried social programs. I've tried financing. I've tried everything. There's no other way." "Yes, there is." Robert started driving again, resuming the route. "And you'll find out what it is when we get home." When they arrived at the apartment, Mrs. Lucia opened the door before they even knocked. She must have been waiting anxiously. Seeing her daughter, she pulled her into a tight hug. "Clara, my daughter. Thank God." "Mom, what's going on? Why did Mr. Miller come to get me?" "Come in," Robert said. "We need to talk, all three of us." They sat down in the small living room, Robert in the only armchair, Mrs. Lucia and Clara side by side on the sofa. The tension was palpable. "Clara, I know everything. I know you dropped out of school. I know about the 2 jobs. I know you are killing your dreams. To try to save your mother. Clara lowered her head, embarrassed. But that ends now. Starting tomorrow, things will change. Your mother will be admitted to Cedars-Sinai. The best doctors will take care of her. All the medicine she needs, all the treatments, everything paid for. And you, Clara, will go back to school. Mr. Miller, I can't accept this. Clara raised her head, the familiar stubbornness shining in her eyes. It's too much. We have no way to pay. I'm not asking for payment. Then it's charity, and I don't accept charity. It's not charity. Robert leaned forward. It's a debt. What debt? We didn't know you before my mother started working at the mansion. No, you don't know me, but I've known your family much longer than you imagine. Robert signaled to Mrs. Lucia, who understood. She got up, went to the bedroom, and returned with something in her hands, the photo of Sergeant Anthony Silva that Robert had left there earlier. Clara, this man next to your grandfather is my brother, Edward Miller. Clara took the photo, confused. Your grandfather and my brother served together on a peacekeeping mission 50 years ago. My brother did not return from that mission. And when he passed, my mother fell into such a deep depression that doctors thought she wouldn't survive. Robert paused, his voice heavy with emotion. It was your grandfather, Clara, who saved my mother. He wrote letters for over a year. Letters about Edward, about who he was, about his last moments. He treated my brother with dignity until the end, and then comforted my family when we needed it most. Those letters brought my mother back to life. Clara looked at the photo, her eyes wide. I never got to thank your grandfather personally. When I finally had the means to look for him, he had already passed away. This debt has stayed with me all these years, haunting me. My entire fortune cannot repay what that man did for my family. I didn't know, Clara whispered. My mom just told me, but I still can't believe it. Your grandfather was a hero, Clara, and you are his worthy granddaughter. But just as he didn't leave anyone behind on that mission, I won't leave you behind now. His battalion's motto was this: no one gets left behind. Tears rolled down Clara's face, but she still resisted. Even so, Mr. Miller, it's too much. The hospital costs, the medicines, all of this will cost a fortune. For you, yes. For me, it's less than I spend on 1 month of the company's electricity bill. Clara, you are 17 years old and already thinking about giving up everything. Your mother is killing herself working while sick out of pride. This needs to stop. But it's not fair. You have no obligation to us. I don't have an obligation. I have a debt and a choice. I can continue accumulating money that I'll never be able to spend, sleeping poorly every night, feeling empty despite everything I have. Or I can do something that truly matters, help the family of the man who saved mine. Mrs. Lucia, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. Clara, accept it. Please. Not for us, but for your grandfather. He would be happy to know that the good he did came back to his family. Clara looked at her mother, then at Robert, then at the photo in her hands. The resistance in her eyes, finally, began to yield. I just want my mom to be okay. She will be, Robert promised. I guarantee it. And I just want you to go back to studying. Mrs. Lucia held her daughter's hand. That you have the future your grandfather always dreamed of for you. Clara finally broke down in tears again, but this time they were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. Okay, I accept, and I will work the rest of my life to pay off this debt. There is no debt between us, Clara. There is only the settling of an old one. Now, rest. Tomorrow we start putting everything back on track. In the following days, Mrs. Lucia and Clara's lives changed completely. On Wednesday morning, Robert personally drove Mrs. Lucia to Cedars-Sinai. He had scheduled an appointment with Dr. Fernando Pacheco, one of the country's top specialists in autoimmune diseases. The doctor examined Mrs. Lucia thoroughly. ordered a battery of tests, and by late afternoon already had a detailed diagnosis and an aggressive treatment plan. Mrs. Lucia, you are in an advanced stage of lupus, but it is not irreversible, Dr. Pacheco explained, sitting in his modern office. We will start with strong immunosuppressive treatment combined with state-of-the-art biological medications. They are expensive drugs, but extremely effective. Doctor, how much will it cost? Mrs. Lucia asked, still not believing she was there. You don't need to worry about that. Mr. Miller has already settled everything. Your focus now is just on recovery. Mrs. Lucia looked at Robert, who was leaning against the office wall. Mr. Miller, how can I thank you? By getting well. That's the only thanks I want. Meanwhile, Andrew, Robert's assistant, accompanied Clara back to the public high school where she studied. The principal, a gray-haired woman named Principal, Marcia, received them in her office with a mixture of relief and concern. Clara, you disappeared. You vanished without explanation. We called your home several times. I know, Principal, and I'm sorry, but I had to work to help my mother. Andrew intervened. Principal Marcia, I'm Andrew Campos, assistant to businessman Robert Miller. I'm here to help regularize Clara's situation. She is an excellent student, the best in the state system, and she cannot lose the year due to circumstances beyond her control. The principal sighed. Clara truly is exceptional, but the rules are clear. She missed more than 30% of classes, and the university application deadline has passed. I understand the rules, Principal, but there are exceptions for special cases, aren't there? Cases of extreme family hardship? Principal Marcia adjusted her glasses and looked at Clara more closely. There are exceptions, yes, but they need to be very well documented. Clara, why didn't you tell us what was happening? Because I was ashamed, Principal, Clara admitted, her voice low. Ashamed of failing, ashamed of not being able to handle everything. You weren't failing, my dear. You were surviving. Andrew placed a thick envelope on the principal's desk. Here are all the necessary documents, medical reports for Clara's mother, proof of income, history of the family situation, everything certified and authenticated. Clara was working to pay for her mother's medical treatment. It's a classic case for an exception. Principal Marcia scanned the documents, her expression softening with each page. Everything is in order. I can authorize Clara to take makeup exams. If she passes, she can complete the school year. She will pass, Andrew said with conviction. Clara is the best student this school has ever had. I have no doubt about that. The principal smiled for the first time. Clara, you can take the exams next week, all in one day. It will be tough, but I know you can handle it. Thank you, Principal. I promise I will study hard. I know you will. Now about the university. I already gave up on UCLA, Principal. The deadline passed. Not necessarily. Andrew intervened again. Mr. Miller has contacts in the administration. He will request a special meeting to present Clara's case. With her academic history and the special circumstances, there's a good chance we can get an exception. Clara looked at Andrew with renewed hope in her eyes. Do you really think it's possible? With Robert Miller making the request personally, I'm sure of it. And Andrew was right. 3 days later, Robert sat in the office of the UCLA provost, Professor Dr. Augustus Fisher. It was an imposing room, with shelves full of old books, diplomas on the walls, and a solid mahogany desk. The provost was a man in his 60s, completely white hair, thin-rimmed glasses, and an air of academic authority. Mr. Miller, it's an honor to receive you. I heard you made a generous donation to our new digital library. It was a pleasure to help, Professor Augustus, but today I came here for a different reason. I came to talk about an exceptional student who missed the application deadline due to extreme circumstances. Robert presented Clara's case in detail, omitting any element that might sound like a personal favor request. He focused on the girl's academic merits, her impeccable history, and the documented circumstances that forced her to temporarily abandon her studies. The dean listened intently, flipping through the documents Robert had brought. This is truly a remarkable case. Miss Clara has exceptional grades. She never scored below an A in any subject. She was the top student in the Young Leadership program, And it's documented here that she was working to pay for her mother's medical treatment. Exactly. A girl who sacrificed her future for the person she loves deserves a second chance, don't you think? I completely agree. But understand, Mr. Robert, that there are protocols. Deadlines exist for a reason. If I make an exception for one person, others might demand the same treatment. I understand perfectly, Professor. But this isn't a case of someone who simply forgot the deadline or wasn't organized. This is the case of a young woman who was literally fighting for her family's survival. There is a difference. The dean remained silent for a few moments, deep in thought. I will present the case to the university board. I can't guarantee anything, but I will give my favorable recommendation. With her history, I believe we have a good shot. That's all I ask, Professor. A fair chance. She will have it. And Mr. Robert, if you'll allow me a personal observation, it's rare to see businessmen of your caliber get so directly involved with individual social issues. Most prefer to make donations and let institutions manage the cases. Robert smiled discreetly. Let's just say this case is personal to me, Professor. Very personal. While Robert fought for Clara's spot at the university at the hospital, Mrs. Lucy began her treatment. The first few days were tough. The immunosuppressant drugs were strong and caused nausea, dizziness, and weakness. But Dr. Peterson monitored every reaction, adjusted dosages, and prescribed complementary medications to alleviate the side effects. It's normal to feel worse before you feel better, Mrs. Lucy, he explained during his daily visits. We are attacking the disease aggressively. Your body is responding to the treatment. Clara visited her mother every day after school. She had returned to classes with renewed energy, determined to make up for lost time. She studied for hours, redid exercises, and asked teachers for help. It was as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from her shoulders and she could finally breathe. During one of these visits, she found her mother sitting up in the hospital bed, looking better than she had in months. Mrs. Lucy had more color in her face, brighter eyes, and a genuine smile on her lips. "Mom, you look beautiful." "I'm feeling better, honey. Much better." Dr. Peterson said the treatment is working beyond expectations. Clara sat on the edge of the bed and held her mother's hand. "I was so scared, Mom. So scared of losing you." "I know, my daughter. I was too. But look at us now. You're back in school, and I'm getting the treatment I need, all thanks to Mr. Robert." "Thanks to Grandpa Anthony, too," Clara corrected. "He's the one who planted the seed of this miracle 50 years ago." "Your grandfather would be so proud of you, Clara. So proud." The two hugged for a few minutes, in silence, simply feeling the gratitude and relief of being together, alive and hopeful. The week of exams arrived. Clara walked into the classroom at 7 on a Friday morning. She had 6 tests ahead of her: English, math, history, geography, physics, and chemistry, all in a single day. It was exhausting, but she was prepared. Ms. Marcia, the teacher, had organized everything carefully. Clara would be alone in a room with proper supervision and would have the necessary time to complete each test. At 7 in the evening, after 12 hours of intense examination, Clara finally placed her pen on the desk and sighed deeply. It was done. 5 days later, the principal called her into her office. Clara walked in nervously, her hands sweating. "Clara, have a seat." "Did I pass, Principal?" Ms. Marcia smiled broadly. "You passed with flying colors, my dear. You scored a perfect score on 4 tests and above a 90 on the other 2. You are officially approved to graduate." Clara felt tears well up immediately. "Thank you, Principal. Thank you so much." "The gratitude is mine, Clara, for having a student like you. Now go celebrate. You deserve it." The graduation ceremony was scheduled for the end of December. It would be held at the school itself, a simple but meaningful event. Clara was excited but also nervous. Mrs. Lucy had been discharged from the hospital 2 weeks prior and was home, continuing her treatment on an outpatient basis. Dr. Peterson guaranteed that she was in complete remission, that the disease was controlled. 2 days before the graduation, the dean of the university called Robert personally. Mr. Robert, I have good news. The university board approved the exception for Clara. She is officially accepted into the political science program for the next semester. Robert closed his eyes, feeling a wave of relief and joy. Professor Augustus, I don't have the words to thank you. No need to thank me. The girl deserves it. In fact, I'd like to meet her personally. May I attend her graduation? It would be an honor for Clara and for me. On the night of the graduation, the school gym was decorated simply but lovingly. Blue and white balloons, the school colors, hung from the ceiling. Chairs lined up for the guests, a small stage set up at the front. The graduates, all wearing traditional caps and gowns, waited nervously backstage. Clara adjusted her mortarboard for the 10th time. She had been chosen as the class valedictorian, an honor that left her simultaneously proud and terrified. In the audience, she knew her mother, Robert, Andrew, and to her surprise, the university dean were present. The ceremony began. National anthem, words from the principal, diploma presentation. Finally, it was time for the valedictorian's speech. Clara walked onto the stage, her legs trembling, her heart pounding. She held the microphone and looked out at the audience. Clara took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was shaky at first, but it gained strength as the words flowed. Good evening, everyone. Teachers, family members, classmates. I was chosen to speak on behalf of our class today, and I confess I spent days thinking about what to say. I thought about talking about the future, about dreams, about success, but I realized it would be dishonest of me to talk about individual success when I almost didn't make it here. She paused, looking directly at where her mother was sitting. A few months ago, I was ready to give up everything. I dropped out of classes, threw away my university acceptance letter, and worked 2 jobs simultaneously, not because I didn't value education, but because I had something more important. My mother was sick, and I needed to save her. For me, the choice was obvious. A diploma is worthless if you lose the people you love. Murmurs of empathy ran through the audience. But then something extraordinary happened. Someone saw me. Someone saw beyond the exhausted girl washing dishes in the early morning. Someone decided that I deserved a second chance, and more importantly, that my mother deserved to live with dignity and health. Clara looked at Robert, who was sitting next to Mrs. Lucy. That person taught me that kindness is not weakness, that helping is not charity when it comes from a place of gratitude and respect, that sometimes the good we do in the world comes back to us in ways we never imagined, even 50 years later. Robert felt his eyes well up. My grandfather, whom I never met, was a silent hero. He helped families in their darkest hour, expecting nothing in return. And decades later, that kindness returned to me and my mother when we needed it most. This made me understand something fundamental. We don't live alone. We are part of an invisible network of support, of small gestures that accumulate and reverberate through time. Clara looked at her classmates. So, my message to all of you today is not about being the best, the richest, or the most famous. It's about being kind, about seeing the people around you, about understanding that a simple gesture can change a destiny, about never forgetting where we came from and always reaching out to those in need. She took one last pause, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you to all the teachers who didn't give up on me. Thank you to my classmates who always supported me. Thank you to my mother, my fortress, my inspiration, and thank you to the one who gave me the greatest lesson of all, that no one gets left behind when we have the courage to care for each other. Congratulations, class of 2025. Let's change the world, one kind gesture at a time. The audience erupted in applause. People stood up, many with tears in their eyes. Mrs. Lucy was openly weeping, proud. Robert applauded vigorously, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in years. Even the austere Professor Augustus, the university dean, discreetly wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. When the ceremony ended and families gathered with the graduates for photos and hugs, Professor Augustus approached Clara. Miss Clara, I'm Augustus Miller, the dean of the university. Your speech was remarkable, sincere, profound, inspiring. You have a brilliant future in politics. Thank you, Professor. It's an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, and I have a proposal for you. In addition to the regular spot in the political science program, I'd like to invite you to be part of a special mentorship program we offer to exceptional students. You will work directly with renowned professors, have access to internships in government agencies and international organizations. What do you say? Clara looked at Robert and her mother, seeking confirmation. Both nodded, smiling. I accept, Professor, with great pride. In the following days, as Clara prepared for her move to the university campus in a different part of the city, Robert had an important conversation with Mrs. Lucy. He invited her for coffee at the mansion, not as employer and employee, but as friends. Mrs. Lucy, I need to talk about your future. My future, Mr. Robert? Yes, you are recovered, healthy, and I know you are the type of person who needs to feel useful, who needs to work to feel worthy. Mrs. Lucy nodded, a little worried about the direction of the conversation. But I don't want you to go back to working as a housekeeper, not because you aren't excellent at what you do, but because I have something better in mind. He placed an official document on the table. I created a charitable foundation in memory of my mother, Helen Maid'S. The focus is on helping families of military veterans who are going through difficulties, whether in health, education, or basic needs. It's a way to honor her memory and your father's. Mrs. Lucy looked at the document, confused. That's very beautiful, Mr. Robert. But what does this have to do with me? Everything. Because I want you to be the administrator of this foundation. Me? But sir, I don't have the background for that. I'm a housekeeper. You are much more than that, Mrs. Lucy. You are someone who knows what it's like to struggle, what it's like to need help, what it's like to be too proud to ask. You can identify who truly needs help. You can separate urgent cases from less severe ones, and most importantly, you can do it with empathy and respect. But the administrative part, the documents, the money, you will have a team to help you with that. Accountants, lawyers, social workers. But the final decision on who to help and how to help will always be yours, and the salary is 3 times what you earned as a housekeeper. Mrs. Lucy was silent, processing the proposal. Tears began to roll down her face. Mr. Robert, you are giving me a purpose. It's not just a job. It's a reason to live. Exactly. To transform the pain you went through into help for others. To create a legacy. To honor your father. I accept. With all my heart, I accept. On the day of Clara's departure for the university campus, Robert insisted on driving her personally. She only had 2 suitcases with clothes and books, but he made a point of stopping at the electronics store first. Mr. Robert, where are we going? The campus is the other way. I know. But first, we have to make a stop. Half an hour later, they left the store with 2 large bags. Inside them, a state-of-the-art laptop, a tablet, professional headphones, and some accessories. Mr. Robert, this is too much. Clara, you're going to study politics. You'll need to do research, write papers, attend online classes. These tools aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. Accept it and don't argue. Clara smiled, finally accepting that resisting was useless when Robert decided something. When they arrived at the student dormitory, a modern building on campus, Robert helped Clara carry the suitcases up to her room on the 3rd floor. It was a small but cozy space that she would share with another student. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared closet, and a window overlooking the central campus courtyard. Clara started arranging her things, but Robert called her over. Wait, I have one more thing for you. He took a yellowed envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. Inside it was the old photograph Clara had seen several times now. Sergeant Anthony Silva and Edward Maid'S, side by side, in uniform, smiling at the camera. This photo belongs to you now, Clara. You are the guardian of the legacy of these 2 men. Your grandfather, who saved my family with his kindness, and my brother, who taught your grandfather the meaning of companionship. They are together in this photo because they were brothers in arms, and now we are family too. Clara took the photo with reverence, holding it like the treasure it was. Thank you, Mr. Robert, for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible, for saving my mother, for giving me a future. I promise I will honor that trust. I know you will. You have your grandfather's strength and your mother's determination. The world needs people like you. They hugged, a long and sincere embrace. When they separated, Clara had tears in her eyes, but a radiant smile on her face. Now go, study, learn, grow, and when you're ready to change the world, I'll be in the front row to applaud. Robert went down the stairs and returned to the car. From the parking lot, he looked up and saw Clara waving from the room window. He waved back, feeling a strange but wonderful sensation in his chest. Peace. For the first time in years, decades perhaps, Robert felt genuine peace. The insomnia that haunted him had disappeared. The feeling of emptiness that his fortune could never fill was finally gone. He had paid the debt to the past by investing in the future of Clara and Mrs. Lucy. He had honored the memory of his mother and his brother in the most beautiful way possible by helping those in need. That night, back in the silent mansion, Robert ate dinner alone as he always did. But this time, he didn't feel lonely. He went up to his room at 10 o'clock, lay down on the king-size bed, and turned off the light. And he slept, deeply, peacefully, for the first time in years. He dreamed of Edward, young and smiling. He dreamed of Sergeant Anthony, writing letters by the light of a lantern. He dreamed of Clara, speaking on a grand stage, changing the world. And he dreamed of his mother, Helen, smiling at him and saying she was proud. When he woke up the next morning, with the first rays of sun, Robert felt renewed. He had discovered something all his money could never buy: purpose. True wealth was not in his bank account, but in the lives he had touched, in the stories he had helped rewrite. 3 months later, Robert received a letter. It was from Clara, handwritten, with careful calligraphy. Dear Robert, today I had my first political theory class. The professor talked about what motivates people to serve the common good. I thought of you, my grandfather, my mother, people who put others before themselves. I want you to know that I am studying hard and that every page I read, every concept I learn, is fueled by the gratitude I feel. My mother is wonderful in her new job. She tells me about the families she is helping, and I see the same light in her eyes that I saw in Grandpa Anthony's eyes in the photos. The legacy continues. I am sending a photo of myself on campus with this letter. I want you to keep it, just as you kept the photo of Grandpa and Uncle Edward. One day, when I make a difference in the world, you can look at this photo and know that you were a fundamental part of this story. With love and eternal gratitude, Clara. Robert placed the letter and the photo in a special frame in his office, next to the old photo of the two soldiers. 3 generations, 3 stories connected by kindness, sacrifice, and love. And so, the 50-year debt was finally paid. Not with money, but with something much more valuable: hope, dignity, and the chance for a bright future for those who deserved it. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Robert, Mrs. Lucy, and Clara has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours in telling it. Stories like this remind us that true wealth lies in seeing others, in reaching out when someone is in need, and in understanding that small acts of kindness can echo through generations. If this narrative resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel to continue this emotional journey with us. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that we are never alone on this journey. Every day, we bring new stories that celebrate the best of humanity. Let us know in the comments which part of the story moved you the most. Your participation is essential to our community. Until the next story. And remember, no one gets left behind when we have the courage to care for each other.